What's going on, guys? Thomas XSL here, and it takes me about 10 minutes to get a video started because I keep goofing up and then forgetting to turn on my mouse cursor. Alright, let's do-overs. What's going on, guys? Thomas XSL here, and today we're going to be going back into one of our old friends, Gimp, and I'm going to show you how to use the shadow feature in Gimp, or the shadow effect in Gimp. And we're going to play around, we're going to adjust it. I'm going to take a picture, or we're just going to take one of my, the images I have from out of one of my folders, and we're going to put a name on it. And I'm going to show you how to drop shading behind that name. This was actually requested by a great friend of mine in Second Life. So I'm going to show you how to do that. That's more than likely going to be a pretty short video because it's really easy to do. And then I'll just show you some of the effects, how you can use the shadow not just on names but on other sections of pictures. Here we are in Gimp. Okay, so we've opened up Gimp. I found this picture of me and Junkbox Tart when we were driving around one night, and it's not a good picture for a profile picture, but let's just say you have a good picture that you want to put either in your profile or wherever. We're going to put the word cruising in here, I guess. Click on your text tool. Well, even before you click on your text tool, you can go ahead and pick what color you want your text to be. It all depends really on your light and dark hues are on your picture, and also your placement of where you want the word at. Up here, see, down right here is a pretty good placement, and up there is looks good too, because that's pretty bright. Okay, click your text tool, left click, and drag a box. Sometimes this box will shrink back down when you start typing. It's alright, you can just resize it. You don't need the resizer tool, you can just resize it with these little boxes, these little blue boxes right here. So we'll put in, here we're going to click this text tool tab. We're going to go ahead and expand this. Take the editor, and we'll just go with that text. That text looks good. I'm going to blow it up. This isn't really, so this video has a little extra of how to drop text onto a picture. Let's see, I'm going to get a little bit bigger with that. I mean, you can crop your pictures whatever size you want. You can, there we go. That looks good. I'm going to go to rotate here. Just kind of rotate this around. Then I'm going to actually use the resize tool. I use the resize tool to move things like text. Other people use this. What is the move tool? I find sometimes that moves your background and doesn't really move what you want, so I always use the resize tool for the shifting. Alright, so we have our lettering right here. I'm going to click on layers. I want to make sure that we are selected. I keep saying highlighted when I mean selected. Go to filters, go to light and shadow, and then come right over, drop shadow. And mine went behind the toolbox for some reason. Offset is 8. That's, I get confused on the XY, which one's X and which one's Y, but basically what it is the offset is to the right and the offset is down. But you can play with these numbers. You can even put in negatives. You can put the minus sign in front of it, and it'll reset that for a shadow that goes up and to the left. If you don't want it to go excuse me, if you don't want the text going at an angle, you want it going straight down, you just have to play with these numbers and then hit OK to see where your shadow falls. And you can always hit Control Z or go to Edit and then Undo and it'll undo your last action. So offset x is 8, offset y is 8, the blur radius for blurring it is 15, and the color of the shadow is black. But just like the color we selected for the lettering, you can pick your own color. But for now we're going to go with black. The opacity allows resizing. Okay, that's going to automatically resize if it needs to. Sometimes if you do the resizing, sometimes depending on how big your picture is and how big the shadow is that's needed, sometimes they will shrink your picture down a little bit and you'll have an alpha layer going around the picture. So just be wary about, sometimes that happens, and if you bring it in the second life without realizing it, you could end up wasting 10 linens because you have to go back and resize your picture to hide that alpha layer. You're going to see right here the cruising, you're going to have that drop shadow. There we go. I'm going to select the background layer just to get rid of that box, and there you see it. Real nice, nice and close shadow. And you can, if you play with those numbers, here, undo drop shadow, go to filters, and anything you do on here, it's going to have, you're going to have either the repeat feature or you're going to have the reshow, which will reshow the box. Now we can play around, and we're at 0 still, 8 and 15, and click OK. Alright, and there we go. So reshow again. So the x-axis is going right and left, and the y-axis is going up and down then. So now we know. Drop shadow, and now if we put -8 and hit OK, now it's going to drop it to the left of the lettering. You see, it's on the left edge now. If you look over here, the drop shadow has its own, it's in its own layer. If you click to make cruising invisible, there you see just the shadow itself, and you see the blur factor. You can change that blur factor and make it, you can give that shadow a really sharp edge, or you can choose to make it even more blurry than it is at default. For color, let's go with something, let's see, you can click here, you can click over here to make to find mix your color, or you can go along this spectrum here as well to get even more colors. So let's see, it's in red. Let's go with, we'll go with a nice, let's go with a nice neon green. That'll really stand out. Numeric color code for it. Hit OK, hit OK, and now we have a crazy neon effect going on instead of just a dark shadow. So you don't have to just pick black or grays for the drop shadows. Let's see, making a drop shadow off of the drop shadow itself, and we'll go with, let's go with this purplish color. Yep, and there we go. Now we got a shadow on top of a shadow, or a shadow under a shadow, and you could do that for, come out with some pretty cool effects. Just make sure to keep clicking that last shadow, select that last shadow, filters, reshow drop shadow, and now let's take it to, what color should we do? Let's do yellow. Looking for very strong contrasting colors. There's a nice yellow. OK, and hit OK. There you go. So you can do some really cool fades or colors. You can get clever and have the color of your country's flag like as a shadows. Alright, so here we have something different where we don't have lettering, and instead we have a picture of a motorcycle, and then this lady here in front of the bike is actually an alpha picture, meaning that if we turn off the background layer, you can see she's actually been quote-unquote cut out, and she has a clear background, allowing her to be placed with any background, on top of any background, and it seems like she's there. Let's give her a shadow. Let's go to filters, and I'll come back down the long way just to show you all again how to get here. It's light and shadow. It's filters, light and shadow, and go tightrope walk across that this little selection here. Go down to drop shadow instead of That's close enough. Hit OK, and there we go. There's a shadow. Turn this layer off. You can see. Make sure you clicked on your. Make sure you're selected on what you want to make a shadow of. We show drop shadow, and now we're going to turn the opacity up to 100 and turn the blur radius down to 0 and hit OK, making sure that we are clicked on the right selection. Well, it wasn't a minute ago, and I ended up clicking on the background and making a big old box shadow of the background when I didn't want to. Then wink out your layer. Now we have this awesome silhouette that we can save and bring in later. So if you want to make silhouettes like this, just make sure that the blur radius is set at 0 and the opacity is at 100, and you can now go to File, Save As, and then save it as a silhouette. So that's good for if you want to make silhouettes of ladies for like clubs or silhouettes for whatever. You can do this. I made this texture for a motorcycle called Little Miss Hellbent, and as you can see, I did drop shadows. Each one of these pieces of lettering was separate. Well, these two, the Hellbent was one, but these other two were separate of that. So it's three different layers with the lettering, and then it was 3 additional layers with the drop shadows. And then I had another drop shadow for this devil girl in the middle, which you can see the drop shadow is done in orangish red instead of black. So that's another cool, just like how we're just talking about how we did the lady in the silhouette, or the lady shadow. I used the shadow in here, and actually I think I did a double shadow with this one as well. I had orange red, and then you can see I have black underneath that, just as a cool little extra feature. And here she is thrown on with the flames in the background. And as you see, what I did when I placed her, I made sure that the lettering, the lettering here is above all the other layers, but the drop shadow for the lettering is actually below all the other layers. And this red, and then her red shadow and her black shadow are actually in between the layers of her, and the layers of the lettering here and their shadows. So I know that sounds confusing, and it can get to be a juggling act to balance all the layers. But so with hers, it was the lettering first, then her shadows, both of her shadows, and then the letterings or the font shadow underneath it all. So that's it, guys. Go out there and create awesome pictures with the drop shadow feature. And until the next tutorial video, I'm going to get into alpha. I want to show you all how to cut out yourself out of a picture in Gimp. That'll probably be the next video, how to do alpha, the whole alpha layers and alpha textures. So in the meantime, guys, like, rate, comment, subscribe, join the XL family, and take care. And in all seriousness, guys, this video did take like 10 minutes to start because I kept either laughing, forgetting what I was going to say, or I didn't think I had my mouse, my cursor on. I didn't think I was recording my cursor, which I wanted to make sure I was recording. And I don't work from scripts. I think about it in my head what I'm going to say, and I say it. And oftentimes I goof up. It takes me like 5 minutes or so to get the video started because I start laughing and screwing stuff up.